All right, guys, this is Lab 1, where I'm going to ask you to experiment with different blending modes. So when you open lab1.psd, you will see instructions right here where I'm asking you to change these color blocks using blending modes. And then you're going to label what you did and why you think that blending mode made that color happen. So let's get started. I'm going to kind of do this on the video, and then I want you to choose something on your own. The only rule is you don't get to choose the same blending mode as I do. So it's really kind of an instructional video, but I want you to kind of experiment so you can get used to how these operate. Okay, so first I'm going to do is click on the orange block. You can see I've grouped these together. You can click on this little guy and to close the group folders. And you can see this is group A, which has the orange block and the blue block in it. I can also click on this eyeball and turn off that entire group or turn it back on. So we'll start with group A. So here's my orange block and here's my blending modes possibilities. So you will need to have your layers panel open for this. It's probably over on this side. And I'm going to play around with these. So in your notes, you want to make sure that you have this information down. The group here listed first will darken whatever the intersection is. Doesn't matter if it's darken, turns this almost black, or if it's multiply, still pretty much black. Color burn will do this, but it burns away anything that's lighter. So that if you have a color that's lighter than the color underneath it, it will burn away. But wherever the crossover is, it will stay black. Let's try linear burn. Yeah, it just kind of made this a little bit translucent. So there's lots of darkening ones available there. Now let's try some lightening ones. So here's lighten. This is when we become very much light. And again, whatever is the lighter color is going to go, transparent. Screen, pretty much the same. Color dodge, yeah, you got a slightly lighter blue here. Let's see what lighter color does. Oh, it just keeps the orange looking the same, but only where there's a crossover. So these are darkening, these are lightening. Now these, the third group, they kind of have a mix of both. You have overlay, which will make this darker, but then it lightens everything that's not crossed over. Let's go down and try vivid light. Just makes it a little bit darker. That dark shade becomes a little more intense. Linear light, that's interesting. So you have linear light. So basically linear light, what it's doing is it's taking this and tinting it where the orange is, so it's a slightly lighter orange, but then it's darkening it if there's a darker shade than itself underneath. So it's lightening it if there's white underneath and darkening it if there's a darker color underneath. So that's kind of interesting. Next thing you're going to practice with is flipping these around, and let's see what happens when we mess around with the blue block. If I make this darken, you can see turns it dark. Same thing that happened before. Multiply should be the same thing. Let's try a lightning one. Lightning, oh, where this one was yellow before, now this one is gone pink. It must be pink because it's Wednesday. If you get that reference, then clap your hands. If you don't, then you need to watch more movies. Screen does pretty much the same thing. Color dodge, yeah, very barely you can see that. And let's try the blending ones. Overlay, ooh, that looks cool. It's a red. Let's try linear light, see what we get with that. So there's a big difference there. Look at the difference. Again, it kind of does the same thing though. It took the blue and it made it a tint of blue, and wherever there's another color underneath it, it made it a shade of blue. It added dark to it. So you have light here and darker right here. Okay, let's set everything back to normal. And this is where you're going to basically label them. You're going to choose what you want to do for each grouping, for these, and for these. And you're just going to get a text box here, and you're going to explain what you did and why you think it has done that. So I'm going to go with that last one that I just showed you. I'll open up a text box, draw a little text, and I will say blending mode. I don't care what font you use, by the way. Blending mode. What was that blending mode I chose that looked so cool? I think it was linear light. Yeah. All right. Linear light. I'm going to take this text box and move it down into this. Whoops. This is the text box. Yeah, I'm going to keep this text box in this group. So blending mode is linear light. And what it does is it basically tints any color that is by itself right here. And then it adds a shade or a darker hue, that color. Sound. When a dark color is below it. So just something like that. Now you have to do this differently for each one. So if you choose linear light for these two, you don't get to choose linear light for these two or linear light for these two. Matter of fact, you can't choose linear light at all because it's the one that I chose. Ha ha ha. All right, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so it fits in that space. Like I said, you can play with the text if you want. If you want something that's a little bit easier to read, that's fine. Just put that on there. So I chose linear light. So you guys are going to close that group, do something different for group A, and then choose a different one for group B. Maybe you could try, I don't know, lighten. What does lighten do? Barely a huge tint of that green, and then the actual green that's behind white is like not even there. So you could try that one for lighten. See what happens if I flip them around. Pink's on top. Let's go with lighten. I'm going to theorize that this area right here is going to become a super light pink. And then this area right here is going to disappear. Ha ha ha! I was right. So that's the kind of thing that you're going to do. You're kind of experimenting, and you're going to kind of hypothesize, and then you're going to get a text block right here, and you're going to type up what your results are. That's it. Do it for each one, but remember, linear light is off limits because I chose that one first. Good luck. You got about a half hour to do this lab, and then the sub will move you on to your next lesson. Later, dudes.